Are you happy in your business? Now, I have had my share of emotional ups and downs in my 20 years of being a solo entrepreneur coach. And the patterns I've seen in myself and in my clients is that those downs are usually when I was personally feeling unfulfilled. Sometimes it was because a launch that flopped, and sometimes it was just life and had nothing to do with business. But those ups, oh boy, those are the times when I was feeling my most authentic and completely aligned to my purpose, or when I just felt like I was rocking that work-life balance. I would be thinking I could do this all day long and never feel tired. One of my loves is sharing what works for me and what has been working for my clients to achieve this very feeling, full of passion, happiness, peace, and freedom. So I decided to create a private podcast for coaches. Maybe you just want to develop better communication skills that boosts engagement, leads to better results, and makes you feel like you're actually making a difference in the lives of the people you serve. Then you're invited too. We talk about this and more in the UBU private podcast for coaches. Whether you're a mentor, a parent, or run a client-focused business, coaching skills benefit everyone and anyone who wants to communicate in a way that builds relationships. Fall in love with your life and business again. Click the link in the show notes for your invitation to join us right now. Then come back and enjoy this episode. Hey, difference maker. I am so excited. This is a podcast episode that's been in the making for at least a year now. We've kept going back and forth like, oh, we could talk about this and we could talk about this. So I'm super excited to have Melanie talk about archetypes. Well, first of all, what are archetypes and how Melanie uses it in her business and for branding and how you can use that as well. And then we're going to have a nice little after party conversation. So if you are not subscribed to the Unbox Your Personality podcast, go ahead and do that so you don't miss it because it's going to be super, super juicy. It's time to stop comparing yourself to others and plug in to what is uniquely you. Welcome to Unbox Your Personality, the podcast for coaches, creatives, and educators like you who understand that your happiness makes you more effective at what you do, bringing out the best in others. I'm Jen P. Higgins, personality strategist and Enneagram fluff remover. Get laser focused on who you are and who you aren't, so you're free to make the impact you were born to make. And have fun doing it. Your personality is your business. So let's get down to business. I'm excited to introduce Melanie Tvete. She is all things brand, all things archetype, and she's just a plethora of knowledge, of wise sage. And so I'm excited to share her with you today. Melanie, thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Like you said before, this has been in the making for a while now. And so when you had reached out, I was super excited because I'm like, absolutely, now is the right time. It feels right to share this with the world and be the first to share it on yours. So I'm excited.
Awesome. So tell everyone just briefly, like, what is your business about? What kind of clients that you serve and how you serve them?
Yeah, so I am a messaging strategist, which is really branding and marketing together. Because what it comes down to is being the message and the experience that it creates from sharing like messaging. So what I do is that I help entrepreneurs, so mostly like healers, creatives, thought leaders, to be heard, seen, and understood by understanding who they are, so that they can there share their message and live their purpose out in the world. Because all of us are here for a purpose. We're not here by chance. And there's a mission that we're here to fulfill. And I want to help you fulfill it. So the way that we do that is by sharing your story, to relate to others, to connect with your clients. And so being a messaging strategist, it allows me to really help you be you and show up like unapologetically and authentically, but also to live that purpose that we're here to do. So that's who I am. I'm a wayfinding warrior. Pretty much I have found my way, like come hell or high water. I'm fighting for the way, right? And so I want to fight for you guys.
Awesome. Isn't she our tribe, guys? Such a perfect fit. I'm so excited about this. I wrote that down, wayfinding warrior. I started all of my podcasts with difference maker. Like that's what we are. We are difference makers in we find a way. We are talking about archetypes. So, exactly what is archetypes? It's a profiling system.
The best way to describe it is really, it is the universal language that our soul and that as a human race understand. It's the subconscious and the collective unconscious language that we speak. So language, most people think language is like, okay, I understand English, I understand German, I understand, Hindu or whatever other languages. That is something that you understand here. But if you talk with somebody from a foreign country, like I have a friend in the Netherlands, and it's sometimes they struggle to get the words out. So we use other words to describe it, to go, oh, that's the word you mean.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to that, where it's really understanding the soul and the universal language that we all speak. So you'll see this in like storytelling. You'll see this in like your personality types. You'll see this in branding. So archetypes it's a very broad term and it's used broadly, but it really comes down to understanding how we communicate. And I know it's essentially trying to put you in a box, but not like a rigid box. You know what I mean? It's like as humans, we're trying to like understand things. And so we have to put it in a box. So it's trying to like bring it that way.
Yeah, I love that. I feel the same way. This is Unbox Your Personality, Unbox University. But what I say it in my book and I say it in my coaching, if you don't acknowledge the box, you can't get out of it. So you have to figure out what that box, but you're not the box, but the box is yours. So acknowledge the box and then you can get out of it. So I love that. We're totally on the same page.
So like I said, where you're going to see a lot of archetypes is like any movies. They use archetypes, and like there's always a hero, there's always a villain, there's always a thought leader, there's always somebody who's going to lighten the mood to it. There's always going to be somebody who might be the rebel and say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to necessarily swear on your podcast, but this. I was like, I don't know if I can swear. So it's like you're going to have those different type personalities showing up. And like I said, you really see it very thoroughly in movies, but you also see it in brands. And so as we go through, I can explain some of the different brand examples as well to try and give you like a better understanding at how it's being used in branding.
Yeah, absolutely. Real briefly, I think you told me there were 12 archetypes. Could you kind of just go through what those 12 are and maybe one or two things that would help us recognize who that is in a book or a story or that kind of thing?
Yeah, like you said, there are 12. There is innocence, sage, explorer, rebel, magician, hero, lover, jester, everyman, the caregiver, ruler, and creator. So an innocence is really somebody who has that childlike wonderment. They are really looking for safety. They're optimistic. They're searching for happiness. They're searching for the happiness, and things are a little bit more lighthearted, but they're wanting to find that dream. They're really looking to say, a good example would be like Dorothy, Wizard of Oz. It's like, oh, I just picture perfect. I want to live the dream, childlike wonderment. A sage is somebody who is kind of that knowledge seeker, that analyst. It could be, I go analyst and there's so many other ists, right? And that's category of things. But they're really the ones who are seeking to be like, they want to understand things. It's a lot of the knowledge. They're searching for knowledge. So you'll see bookkeeper, like people who are like invested in books. There's a reason why I have 1 million books, because I'm a sage. And then we have an explorer. Explorer would be somebody who is really adventurous, who is wanting to find that freedom. And freedom is really that thing that motivates them to say, I really do not want to fit in a box. They're going to be somebody who wants to maybe travel, somebody who is looking to do it their own way and just not feel confined, right? Then a rebel is somebody who is kind of saying, screw the world. They're a freedom fighter. They're being more bold. They're going to be challenging status quo. They're going to be saying, like Harley Davidson is a perfect example of that one. Like they're challenging the status quo. A magician is somebody who is transforming they see a problem and they're transforming it and making a solution that helps make dreams come true. They see a problem and they're like, I want this thing to feel magical and special and vibrant. A hero is somebody who's going to be very courageous, somebody who's that warrior, who's going to be the fighter, but they're doing it from a level of mastery of saying that I want to be the best that I can be, but I also want to lead and help others, and I will pave that way. Where a lover is somebody that they use a lot of adjectives and a lot of feelings. They tend to be a peacemaker. There's a lot of intimacy or a lot of connection is a very strong thing that they're looking for. They want to love and to be loved. That is what their ultimate goal is. So a jester is someone who is a comedian, somebody who's a storyteller, somebody who brings laughter and fun and energy and just wants to live in the moment. Like, just being very present. And every man is really an advocate, somebody who is wanting to belong. They're fighting for equality. They're wanting to sometimes just fit in. And every man typically gets overlooked in a lot of ways because they just blend in a little bit more until they start learning their leadership skills to actually be an advocate for others. A caregiver is typically the protector, the nurturer. They have a lot of that compassion. A typical mom is a caregiver, but you don't have to be a mom to be a caregiver. It's taking care of others over themselves is a typical trait that they have. A ruler is typically an executive or I will sometimes say a queen or a goddess, right? Say like you are the commander. You are the one who is leading the ship and moving things forward. And people know that you either get on board or you are left behind because they're up for refinement. They're very decisive. They're really making things that they're wanting control in many ways. And then the last one would be a creator, which is an artist, somebody who's very expressive, somebody who wants to bring a vision to life in a very expressive, creative way. So it might be very visually or adjective rich, so it's like textures and it's kind of that area. You can, really know an artist just by the way they dress and the way that their things in their house, right? Those are the 12 and a little bit more details. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. And I was being the Enneagram geek that I am. I'm going through and I'm assigning little numbers next to each of them. I was like, okay, that kind of sounds like a 7. Oh, that definitely sounds like a 2. And those of you who are already Enneagram fans, you probably could do that too. But I would love, and we've talked about this before, I would love to really go into a deep dive to see how the Enneagram patterns connect to these archetype patterns. And I'm of the philosophy that you don't have to marry the Enneagram the way I did, but, adopt some kind of self-awareness profiling system tool that helps you understand who you are so that you can come from a place of groundedness, from a place of self-connection, and to be able to move forward with self-validation instead of outside validation. And I believe that when we unbox ourselves, that is the best gift that we can give ourselves, is to be able to self-validate. So I'm super excited about that. How do you actually bring this in to your business when you're talking about branding and messaging?
So I'm similar to you, right? You want to find your own validation and you want to be able to stand in your truth. You want to say, this is who I am, and be able to show it that way. And that is really where it comes down to in your messaging and in your brand. And like I said, brand and marketing, that they go hand in hand. And messaging is the piece that really connects the two. Being able to show up unapologetically is really how I do it, because where I started learning this process and how I fell in love was through the storytelling. And I was like, oh, this makes sense, because I was very much a branding person early on in my career. And I was trying to figure that out. And then I came across this and I went, oh, this makes sense. I get this. I understand how this commercial brand, a big brand, is, or these characters are the brand and how they exude that personality type, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so where I really got going into it and how it embodies in my business now is I now know my unique mix. So even though there are 12, I narrow it down to 3, because it's like, these are my 3 primary, but then we have the rest, because we have all 12 of them in us,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be at different levels of growth. There can be some of them where you can be, as you grow and evolve, you will grow and evolve each different type and bring in those strengths and get rid of some of those, recognize those weaknesses, or say, okay, other areas are helping. You can see how there's that conflict and there's similarities between them, because you see that in the Enneagram too, where they all work together, right?
And that's what makes great movies too, right?
Yes.
Having that internal conflict.
Correct, because there's that dynamic. And we're not just one-dimensional, right? We are multidimensional human beings. And so being able to bring in those pieces really helps make that brand unique to you. Because if you can understand your 3 primary types, and then you can start understanding the subtypes that help you, that is how you show up unapologetically. It really is being the best you and knowing what your best storytelling strategy is. How do you want your customers to feel heard? How do you want them to feel when they interact with you? How do you want them to leave? What is that energy that you want to give them and also receive? So it's, we want to find our ideal clients. We don't want to work with just anyone. We want our ideal clients. And so it's being able to show the energy out there so that in return, you're getting the people who are looking for you. So it's being that magnetic piece. That's how I bring it in, is really knowing my piece and being able to find my mix that is right for me based upon my stories and my experience and my personality and all my history in order to show that to the world.
I love that, because we do naturally attract people that are like us and that can relate to our stories and our values and those things. And so when we know that about ourselves, then we don't need to be surprised about who we attract. But when we put a mask out there, and I think this is what happens a lot of times in business, that we see how other people are doing it, and then we were like, oh, well, they're successful, so let me go do it the way they did. And then we start attracting people that we don't like to work with. And it's because we put this mask on and we are attracting the kinds of people who are attracted to people with the mask and not actually us. And so I love this. I love the dynamic of, like, I knew about this whole, push and pull internal conflict thing. But just until you brought that up, I was like, oh my gosh, that is why movies captivate us. That's what keeps us engaged, because we can relate to that internal conflict. Yep. So this is really brilliant. I love it. We are going to, in a few minutes, we're going to go ahead and close down this live stream and have the after party for the podcast. And what I'm kind of hoping that we're going to figure out what my 3 primary ones are. And me being a comparer, I would love to see, oh gosh, does this really solidify my type 7? Even though I know I'm a type 7. So this will be super interesting.
And one thing that you said too was, I lost it. It'll come back to me.
Yeah. Yep.
Whatever.
Real people have brain farts too, guys.
Well, come on, whatever. If it's meant to say, it's meant to be.
Real quick, before we jump off of the live stream, go ahead and let people know how they can find you online.
Yeah, so the easiest way is literally in Facebook, just tag me. Easiest way. Just Melanie Tvete. So my first name, last name, that's how all my handles are right now.
Awesome. And I just realized I was mispronouncing your last name. So sorry.
That's okay. Everybody does.
You get it a lot. Alrighty. So tag Melanie for any questions that you might have about archetypes. All right. Bye, you guys. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and reviewing the Unbox Your Personality podcast. To learn more about yourself, go to powercoachjen.com. Find out how you are different so you can make your difference.